Hello. Good evening. Chris asked for a local to introduce you and get you started this evening, so I guess I get the job again. So sorry you have to hear me again. So, so. Anyway, it's really nice to see all of you out. This is a good crowd. This is awesome. We're going to have another learning session. You guys are going to be introduced to 3 speakers tonight. So you've got 3 different people that you can hear from. So that'll be good for some change, right? So you guys know where most of you, I know you, so you know where the exits are, there, there, and there. And there's coffee at the back table, so if you want to get some coffee, go ahead. We didn't bring snacks, so you'll have to do without the snacks, though. So other than that, I think everything is good to go because you guys are all familiar with here. So, okay. So first thing we'll do is bow our heads for the Lord's prayer, or for a prayer. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beautiful day that we have and for the nice weather we've been having to get our crops growing and our gardens all growing. We appreciate the efforts of all the people that have come out and all the learning. Our hearts, and pray that our hearts be open and hear what the people have to say, apply them to what we need to do in order to make our lives the best that we can have on God's green earth. Okay, and amen. Okay, so your first speaker is John Reil. Okay, and I think he lives by Ponoka, and he's headed up here, and he's going to give you some more information. I think it's really, yeah. It's really high up here. This is odd. We're usually down there, so. There you go.
If I was about 40 years younger, I could jump down there. But I'm not, so I won't. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I think that, opening with prayer is wonderful. I'm waiting for the inspiration as to what I should talk about or say today. Nothing yet. Really appreciate you all being here. I am a former member of the Canadian military. I used to farm elk and wild boar until we went broke and raised cutting horses at the same time, which helped us go broke. Built a few gas plants and did some work in the oil patch and lived in Mexico for a decade and a half. Now I'm back. And many years ago, my wife and I were involved in politics to the extent that we were involved with the old Alberta First Party. And you might be interested to know that the Alberta First Party philosophy was much like what Danielle Smith is talking about today. We wanted the federal government to get the heck out of our business and stay in their own lane and leave us alone and let us operate under the Constitution of Canada. Did it work? That was 25, 30 years ago. Didn't work then. Is it working now? No. So now I am a believer in independence for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that we should be abiding by the rule of law, which is the Constitution of Canada, and getting the federal government the heck out of our pockets and our business, but because Canada is circling the drain. There are 10 provinces in Canada. Only one is profitable. You're living in it. If it wasn't for Canada, Canada's credit rating is a AA. The way the international credit agencies determine the credit rating of a country is they look at the inputs that they have and compare it to the outputs that they have and say, okay, your credit rating is this, this, and this. Without the inputs from Alberta and Saskatchewan, and partly from northern British Columbia, Canada's credit rating would not exist. Between 18 and 24% of the budgets of the maritime provinces come directly from the money they get from equalization. Where does the money from equalization come from? It comes from us. So without Alberta, Canada would be in real trouble, which is why we get so much vitriol from Ottawa. Quebec gets love. Please stay with us. We love you. We'll do anything we can. Because the reason they get that love is not because they're so wonderful, although I will concede that our French-Canadian brethren are wonderful people. It's not because they're so wonderful. It's because they have so many seats in the Parliament. And the government needs those seats in order to be in power. We don't have those seats in Parliament. The government doesn't give a whit about who we elect in Alberta. It doesn't matter. In the last election, it was called before the first votes in Manitoba were even begun to be counted. We knew we had a Liberal government. So there's that. This year, the federal government under Mark Carney said that we would have a deficit of approximately $30 to $32 billion. That has since been revised. The deficit this year is going to be somewhere between $62 and $72 billion, more than twice what they projected. We can't keep going like that. If we stay in Canada, we go down with them. So we have a choice. There's all sorts of ways to try and lever our way into a position of influence with the Canadian government, and we don't have any of those levers. We don't have representation in the Parliament. We don't have representation in the Senate. All we have is money, and they want it. When I talk to you about the problem that Canada has with their budget, we know that they're going in the hole. We know that every other province in Canada is reducing their GDP every year. They're losing money and people, and we're the only province that's gaining, which means that we are the only province that has a net positive outflow of cash from our productivity. Has anybody here ever heard of a phrase called a windfall tax? Have you ever heard of that? Well, here's the situation. I think this is the gospel according to John. This isn't any official government position, but I've been around for 78 years, and I know this is coming. What's going to happen as Canada continues to circle the drain financially is they're going to look at Alberta and Saskatchewan and say, look at all the money they're getting from their resources. They're getting a windfall. They shouldn't be allowed to keep all that because we need it for the rest of the country. So as good little citizens, you should sit down and shut up while we tax the crap out of you. Because without our money, they would be broke. I like this one. You've got a nice little house. You and your wife, you're an empty nesters. You're doing quite well. You've done all right in your life. You have a little bit of savings. You got some pensions. And all of a sudden, you got a brother-in-law that gets divorced and loses his job and says, can I come and live with you? Sure, you can come and stay in the basement for a little while you get back on your feet. Well, he did that. He came and moved into your basement suite till he got back on his feet, and that was in 1987. He's still there. And when you get up in the morning to go and get your bacon and eggs, there's no bacon left, and there's only 2 eggs. Because he got up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a midnight snack because he got really, really hungry while he was playing his video games, and he's still there. How are you going to solve that problem? What do you do with your brother-in-law? You kick him out. I love Canada. I love what Canada used to be. I'm a former military guy. I served in the RCAF and the Canadian Army. I'm a patriot. I want to save Canada. And the way I want to save Canada is I want to kick them out. They need to stand on their own 2 feet, earn their own way, and become what they can possibly be, the best that they can possibly be based on their own resources and their own capabilities. You know, Quebec has hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of natural gas that they won't mine. Why? Because it means they don't get any equalization. So they'll take that dirty oil money from Alberta rather than develop their own resources. So that's my position with regard to the finance aspect of staying in Canada. I love Canada. Was very proud to be a Canadian soldier and a Canadian airman. Was very proud to be Canadian when I traveled the world. I'm even more proud to be an Albertan because we are people who understand what work is, what ethics are, what family is, and most importantly, we understand what freedom is. Now, I'm going to talk just for a second or two about the hallmarks of a free society. The first thing that tells you you're living in a free society is the rule of law. The rule of law says that laws are fair and they're equally applied to everybody regardless of their position or station in life. Do we have that in Canada? No. Not even close. We have people who commit murder or mayhem who get out in no time flat. In the meantime, we have people who protested our government who are still under house arrest 4 years later. We don't have the equal application of law. We have people in our government who break the ethics laws, which are actual laws. and they're still running around. We do not have equal application of law, so that's the first hallmark of a free society that we don't have. The second one is free and fair and regular elections. Do we have that? Not even close. And we certainly don't have fair representation. The third hallmark of a free society is the recognition of individual rights. Do we have that? No, we don't. The fourth is the separation of powers. The separation of powers means you separate the interpretation of the law from the application of the law from the development of the law. We don't have that. Not even close. That shows in the fact that the implementation of the Emergencies Act during the trucker convoy was found to be unlawful by 2 levels of courts. And what was the federal government's reaction to that was, gee, let's apologize, tell them we made a mistake and try to do better next time. That's what they said, right? No, what they said is let's appeal it to the Supreme Court. So we don't have that either. Independent judiciary. My wife has these figures, but we have out of what? How many judges do we have in Canada? You said 11,000? 1,120 judges that are appointed federally. How many were appointed by the Liberals? 846. How much influence does Alberta have over the appointment of judges in Alberta? None. Do we have an independent judiciary? The classic demonstration of that was what happened to our application for a referendum on independence. They won't even let us count the votes. Winston Churchill said that the reason Britain had all of these colonies was because Britain was more civilized than his colonies. And that you don't understand that until you understand what he meant by civilized. His definition of civilization was a government where the powerful took the direction from the weak. Is that what we have in Canada? No. Protection of minority rights. I guess if you want to get on one of the long list of people who qualify for minority status, you can get that protection. But generally speaking, no, we don't have that. We don't have that. The firearms laws will show that. I'm sorry? Yeah. Do we have economic freedom and property rights? Not a chance. Do we have a culture that values freedom in Canada? No, we don't. There's a fundamental difference between people in Eastern Canada and people in Western Canada, not excluding the lower mainland of British Columbia. There's a bunch of fruits and nuts out there that we just, I can't abide. But other than that, we have a society that says, get out of our way, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to look after ourselves, we want to look after our families, leave us alone. We don't have that. So here's I've probably been going on long enough. I'm only supposed to speak 10 minutes. I think I've been going for 40 so far. We need courageous people. And when I say we need courageous people, what I'm saying is that courage is not being unafraid. When we were collecting signatures, people were reluctant to sign the petition for signatures because they were afraid of the government reaction. They were afraid of the reaction of their neighbors. They were afraid. Others signed the petition even though they were afraid. Courage is not being afraid. Courage is doing it anyway. So my request from you, or for you, is that you exhibit courage when you're speaking to your family, when you're speaking to your friends. I'll tell you a little story really quick. I was in Hammy's grocery store in Ponoka. I pulled in and I got out of my car and I was wearing my Alberta Freedom shirt, Alberta Strong and Free. There was a white SUV beside me and I said hi as I went into the store. I came back out very shortly and he had waited for me. I thought, gee, he's going to talk to me, and he did. He rolled his window down and the air turned blue. He used words I haven't heard since I was a young soldier. He offered to escort me to the border and get rid of me, not now, but right now. So I said, thank you very much for your kind and considered opinion that expressed so eloquently. I'm very pleased that you've come to such a remarkably cogent solution. and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to share it with me. See you later. That's the way we have to act. We don't respond in kind. We don't give them the finger. We don't give them a solid right cross in the left temple. You know, we say thank you for your opinion and carry on. So I would ask this. I would ask that you be courageous. Courageous in your communication with your family, with your friends, and with all with whom you come in contact. Courageous in your attempts to get people to come and vote, even for this milky whatever question we're going to have in October, because it's very important that even that non-question be answered in the affirmative for preparing for independence. It has to be. Be strong, do that, and I'm sure that we'll all end up okay. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Now, Ben, please don't groan at the name. Ben Trudeau is coming up. He is not related to those other guys. I know that for a fact because I've talked with Ben, and he's actually quite bright. I would also like to point out that Ben has written a book. What's it called, Ben?
Enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
And it says enough with Trudeau on the bottom. That's his name.
That's my
name. But you can read it with enough Trudeau, the same way. And I would like to encourage you to buy that book. It is a very valuable book, and Ben will tell you why it's valuable. Yeah. And I will tell you this, Ben, when he speaks to you, he'll speak to you with a French accent, but the book is in English. You're okay.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, my book don't have an accent. So my name is Ben Trudeau, to clear out the atmosphere right away. Yes, I'm related, but 14 generations back. Trudeau is a Canadian name that was created in 1648 in Montreal by a contractor who married a girl and didn't want his family in France to know. So he changed his name from Trudeau with a T to Trudeau with a D. He had a bunch of kids, and the oldest one is the ancestor of the infamous ones, and I'm from the second kid that he had. So, but this is where we meet. So yeah, I was born, raised in Montreal, in a very political family. Not because of my name. There's a lot of Trudeaus in Montreal, but because of my dad's work. My dad's a speechwriter, PR guy. Worked for a lot of politicians in his life. One of my fondest memories is during the Montreal Olympic when I was 4 years old, holding my dad by the hand while he was speaking to René Lévesque, who became premier a couple of months after. He wrote 6 of the 12 white books of Quebec. A white book in our legislature, it's something that casts a vision. So when you want to cast a long-term vision in your legislature for what you want your province to become, you file white books. And my dad wrote 6 of the 12 of Quebec that are still in force after that long. I got involved in politics. Of course, I've been dragged in a lot of meetings on Saturdays and other stuff where I would bring my coloring stuff while they were meeting around the table. And that brought me to politics. That started at 14 when I joined the Young Liberals. Liberals and provincial Liberals in Quebec during the Lac-Meech Accord negotiation, which we had a lot of hope. And when it was rejected on June 23rd, 1990, Quebec felt very rejected by the rest of Canada. It was a very sensitive date because Quebec do not celebrate July 1st. July 1st, you move. 80% of all the lease in Quebec ends on July 1st because of our civil code. So the real celebration is June 24 for Saint-Jean-Baptiste. And to have that decision at the eve of Saint-Jean-Baptiste was a real bad strategy for the rest of Canada. And then after that, we entered into the negotiation for Charlottetown that led to a referendum. At the end of the negotiation, the Young Liberals wing of our party decided that we didn't agree with what with what Bourassa had negotiated, who was the leader of the party, and he used his vetoes against us. And so all the youth wing left the Liberal Party at once. We were about 2,000 youth, and we all left at that AGM. And then we created our own party in '94, the Action démocratique du Québec. I was candidate at the '94 election at 23 years old. Our leader, Mario Dumont, was elected, and he was the only one elected, but we got 7% of all the votes. And this is exactly what was missing to win the referendum. So not long after that election, Parizeau and Bouchard reached to us to say, hey guys, do you want to campaign for the yes? Because something very, very special in Quebec and in most Westminster systems is that no political party are private clubs. And usually in elsewhere than Alberta, when you have a program, you do what your members want first, and then the rest after. Here, it's not happening like that, which I still have difficulties understanding. But in Quebec, Parizeau said, if I'm elected, I do a referendum within a year, which he did. So we joined the yes, but the question we didn't like because we were not separatist. I'm still not a separatist. I will tell you why, and this is what I explained in there. So the question was written by us. The 95 referendum question was the ADQ question, which is, let's give a mandate to the Premier to negotiate with the Feds, and if they don't want to put good faith in it, then we separate. So it was a double clutch referendum question. We got 95% participation to that referendum. There's some polls in Montreal at 6 p.m., 100% had voted. So it was super high participation. We lost by 54,000 votes out of 4.2 million votes casted. So it was a very, very, very close loss. After that happened, what we've done, we say, okay then, let's see how we can be as sovereign as we can under the Constitution that we didn't agree with to start with. So, and then we'll go back to my book. I will go back to the history of Canada. The history of Canada started in 1534, not in 1759. And when the English came, there was already over 200 years of farming in Quebec and on French culture and French establishment. The Montrealers did over 35 cities along the Mississippi. Chicago, Detroit, Mobile, down to New Orleans was all started by Montrealers. And in fact, the first mayor of New Orleans was a Trudeau, the third son of the first Trudeau. So all that to say that after that, when the English came in, they start giving away farms to Americans that want to remain faithful to the king. And when you've been farming on your land for 200 years, and the government says it's not yours anymore, give it to that American, what do you think happened? So there was a revolt in 1837, 1838, and the English stopped that revolt by hanging the 12 leaders of the revolt, some lawyers, some notaries, and extraditing 100 of them in Australia. After that came the 67 Confederation. It was more of a peace treaty than a negotiation. And they brought in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick as a mediator between Lower and Upper Canada. And then the English said, okay, then we cannot win over them. We're going to bankrupt them. So by 1900, the life expectancy in Griffintown, one of the area of Montreal where all the shops were, was 19 years old for a French Canadian. And French Canadian couldn't get any loan from the bank. If you were French, the bank would not lend you. So what they've done, they create their own bank, a credit union named Desjardins. Nowadays, Desjardins is the largest credit union in North America. It has 7.8 million out of the 9 million Quebecers have accounts at Desjardins. Desjardins is a powerhouse for Quebec, not only in banking, but in insurance. Probably a lot of you are paying your insurance premium to Desjardins. And Desjardins holds 500 billion of assets owned as a co-op by Quebecers. That was the first step, because the French understood they want to kill us economically, we'll take care of our money. Then came the income tax for the wars. 1957, well, before that, even in 1897, the Quebecers created their own police. They said, well, under that new constitution, we can have our own police. So they created a Sûreté du Québec. In fact, that put me a lot in trouble when I moved there 20 years ago, because in Quebec, when you see RCMP car, they cannot pull you over. And I got a bunch of tickets because I would not slow down when I was seeing RCMP cars. So I almost lost my permit in the first 6 months I was living here until I realized, oh yeah, that's right, they can pull you over here. So what Quebec did when the federal decided to collect taxes in a permanent matter, they created their own tax regime. They started saying, no, we will collect our own tax. That was in 1957. What did the federal government did? Said, well, if you want to collect your own tax, we will create an equalization program. Because you're collecting your own tax, we want your tax. So that the equalization program was created at the same time. 1965, the federal said, okay, we'll create a CPP, Canadian Pension Plan. Quebec said, we're not interested in your pension plan, we create our own. So they created, at the same time the CPP was created, they created the Quebec Pension Plan and the Caisse de dépôt de placement du Québec, which is the investment branch. 60 years later, now, the Caisse de dépôt, the investment portion of the Canada Pension Plan, is worth $500 billion for 6 million insured. The CPP, that was created at the same time, is worth $700 billion for 22 million insured. The Quebec Pension Plan has been 3 times more performant than the Canadian Pension Plan. Not only that, but the Quebecers said in their law, when they created it, said, the money needs to stay in Quebec and in Canada. So as we speak, that pension plan owns $70 billion of real estate assets, including the Cross Iron Mill here, the outlet in Edmonton, a couple of towers in downtown Calgary, a couple of towers in the Londonderry Mall in Edmonton. So right now, the Quebec Pension Plan owns more real estate than the Alberta government in this province, in terms of value. So after that, they said, okay, they wanted to assert their separation, their identity, and they wouldn't let them do that. So then they went to terrorism, and the FLQ put over 200 bombs in the 60s in the English area of Montreal, until the creation of the PQ that then gave the outlet, the political outlet, to be able to fight for Quebec independence. When the PQ came in power in 1976, this is when the first thing they've done, as I say, they put down a vision for Quebec, and they put down a very strong cabinet that would take action as soon as the election is done. Probably there are still bureaucrats that still wonder what happened to them in that first 6 months of that government. So I'm telling all that because what I've done in that book is that I listed what Quebec is doing now under the Constitution, under we're the same. It's not a question of representation, it's a question of interpreting the Constitution and acting according to the Westminster system. And if Alberta would do the same thing, I believe that this country would go down. I believe that the result of just asserting our rights under that Constitution would render this, will give us so much power that we will be able to negotiate with others, starting by collecting our own money. How can you negotiate when you're not even controlling your own money? They are the one controlling the stuff. They are the one telling you, you know what, if you don't do that, we won't send you transfer. Quebec, they received so far, since the patriation of the Constitution, they received over 6 judgments against them from the Supreme Court of Canada. None of them they respected. There's, under French language law, they are the 5th round of fight with the Supreme Court. 4 times the Supreme Court judged that law, the Bill 101, unconstitutional. And each time they received a judgment, they change what the Supreme Court doesn't like, and they put it back in force. So we're at 50 years of judgment against it from the Supreme Court. And they're still, like, the Supreme Court don't have power. The administration of justice is provincial. So Quebec right now have 38 embassies across the world. They have embassies called Maison du Québec. They have some in Tokyo, Paris, London. So when you're a Quebecer, you go abroad, most likely in these big cities, you'll find a Maison du Québec. And what do? They sign agreement with these countries. They pile them up, and then when their desks get full, they call the Fed and say, "Hey, come up down here because we need to sign trade deals." Alberta can't do that. Alberta could take care of our own immigration. Quebec takes care of its own immigration. So, and my sister is Vietnamese, both people. She came in 1981. In 87, my dad paid or put money aside to bring her parents down to Montreal. When you immigrated in Quebec, even at that time, you needed to go to a 5 days training when we would teach you the story of Quebec, the values of Quebec, and that 5 days will end up with you signing a social contract that you will respect these and learn French. If you don't sign that contract, no driver's license, no health care, no social services, go to Toronto. This is exactly what my sister dad did. He left to Toronto. He stayed in Montreal 2 months. So I'm saying all that because we need the courage to assert sovereignty is not negotiated, it's taken. So my message here, and this is the message of that book, I built all these parallels on how we can do that with a plan here. No, Premier Smith, she's talking about a sovereign Alberta within the United Canada. Bill 1, the first bill she passed when she became Premier. What is Bill 2? Like 5 minutes after passing that first bill, it was to add some conditions to get out of the CPP. So what message did she send to Ottawa right from the get-go? She said, "You know what? I bark loudly, but keep the money. And as long as they keep the money, you can bark as much as you want." So we have to use this season to recruit people and to change our political people or our political class from people with wishbone to backbone. We have to assert our rights. And if we start doing that, I'm telling you, it's right now, Quebec, the PQ is coming back in power on October 5, most likely, 2 weeks before our referendum. It's just the right time because you know what? In Quebec, nobody knows anything about equalization. They don't care of equalization because sovereignty, it's not an economical matter. It's an identity matter. So Quebecer will help us anytime, in any ways, as long as we want to join to piss off Ottawa, they will be behind us. I can tell you that. And I believe that whatever the result of October 19, October 20, the real work starts. But we need a plan, we need a vision, we need to confirm our identity. I moved in this province, politics brought me to this province. I was working for the first Harper government. I was sent on a mission, I had to resign that morning, half an hour before meeting Mr. Stelmach, who was Premier at the time. That's another story. But I had a breakfast with Ed Stelmach, and half an hour before, my chief of staff called me and said, "You have to resign. We already emptied up your office in Ottawa. You have to empty your office in Montreal when you come back." And somebody at the Prime Minister's office that I didn't like me either, got me. No, so I went to see Mr. Stelmach. I said, "Sir, I have to cancel our meeting." And he looked at me and said, he started laughing. He said, "Well, that's just politics. I still have to have breakfast." So I did have breakfast with him, and I moved to Alberta. Met my wife here. She was born and raised in Edmonton. I have 4 kids, all born at the Grey Nuns Hospital in Edmonton. So a dilemma that I had in that campaign said, what makes me an Albertan? I moved here, I was 35 years old. I got married at 39. What makes me an Albertan? Because I am an Albertan, way more than being a Canadian. No, I never identify myself as a Canadian since I'm born. I was a Quebecer before. Now I became an Albertan. So in the book, I did a lot of reflection on that matter as well, and I developed eight heartstrings. I will end up on that. 8 heartstrings that I believe, if you agree with that, a bit like that social contract in Quebec that we asked the immigrant to sign. If we agree with that, I believe you are an Albertan. So heartstring number 1, enduring moral compass. So Judeo-Christian values define our laws and our identity. Heartstring number 2, earn equality. Merit matters, not identity markers. Heartstring number 3, hands-off freedom. Small government, stay in your lane. Heartstring number 4, pioneer grit, family-centered, self-reliant, property respecting. Hard string number 5, real leaders, real results. Builder, not spenders. Conviction, not corruption. Hard string number 6, wise land guardianship, sustainable use by those who live here. Hard string number 7, move or die accountability, self-reliance, personal responsibility. And hard string number 8, proud Canadian Albertan, honor the past, defend the future. And I believe that in this province or this republic, whatever we choose to do, we need to define who we are, make it clear. After that, we need to cast a vision. Where, what time? No, again, I have 4 kids. My oldest one, it's a girl, 2-step kids. When I married my wife, she had 2 kids. So I have a 26-year-old girl. She's a horse trainer near Gibbons. My 25-year-old is in the Royal Navy. He's a sonar operator right now somewhere under the sea between the coasts of Vancouver and Hawaii. And I have 2 younger ones, 13 and 11, and I do that for them. I do that because I choose to live here. I choose to become Albertan. And I want to leave them a province better than the one I choose to live in. So, thank you. And on that, speaking of a great Albertan, great friend, Chris Scott. By the way, I have copies of my book on the table in the back. It's $20 all in, including a Carney's portion.
Thanks, Ben. And I got to say, it's money well spent, because if anybody understands sovereignty or what it means to take a province from, a subjected people to a sovereign people, it's Quebec. They've been doing it for 60 years. Oh, by the way, thank you for the applause. I appreciate it. I'm really excited about this part, because as I was watching the comments on the live stream, some of the same things were coming up over and over and over again. And I do understand that sometimes people ask questions about these topics, not so much because they want an answer, but they're trying to make a statement. So in this case, there's a gentleman, I think, who is saying, if there's no plan, you have no chance. And he's not saying it because he wants to know the plan. Obviously, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. None of us have a crystal ball. And there are people that believe that because there's not some instruction manual for life, that we're not going to be able to do something great. Well, I think people like that need to meet some Albertans, because that's kind of what we do. We don't have a plan for everything. We do things. We have a vision and a place we want to go, and we go there. And as we go, if there's things in the way, we deal with them. We go over them. We go under them, around them. We blow them up, whatever. And I mean like a boulder or something on a road, right? What we're talking about here isn't, nobody here is saying, this is exactly what Alberta should be, or this is exactly what Alberta is going to be. I'm not going to tell you what kind of military an independent Alberta may have, or what kind of currency we will have, or what our international trade will look like. I can't tell you any of those things. I can give you my opinions as to what I believe would be a best case for Alberta, and then we can talk about those things together, and maybe you'll say something and you'll prove me wrong, and we'll get to a better outcome. But what we're talking about here is this opportunity that we have in October. It's not about a plan. And if we want to talk about a plan, we first have to be honest and ask, what's the plan right now? As an Albertan, as a Western Canadian, what is the plan for us moving ahead into the future? How are we going to manage our own wealth and affairs? If we don't agree with federal policy, how are we going to change it? If we don't want to march into the New World Order with Mark Carney, with his friends in China, how are we going to stop that? What's the plan? Independence. Well, aside from Alberta independence, under the current structure, the current situation, where Alberta is now, what is the plan? I want to know everything. What are we going to do about currency? What are we going to do about our military? What are we going to do for international trade? When a prime minister tries to use Alberta as the sacrificial lamb in a trade war, what are we going to do about it? We're going to deal with it. That's the answer. We're just going to deal with it. But when we say we're just going to deal with it, what we really are saying is there isn't a damn thing we can do about it. Really. I mean, we can elect whoever we want in Alberta and British Columbia and Saskatchewan, as we've seen in the last 3 elections. You look at the election results map and it's blue, 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 Manitoba border Liberal. And Western Canada is left without the representation that they want. And it's been like that since 1867. It really has. And that's not even talking about, what was the plan that the Canadian government, that Parliament had for the Northwest Territories, which is what we were, when we were legislated into existence as a province. What was the plan? Would you like me to tell you? We desire, and every Canadian patriot desires, that the great trade of the prairies go to enrich our lives in the East, to build up our factories and places of work, and in every way, in every legitimate way, to its prosperity. That was the plan. That the great trade of the prairies go to enrich those in the East and build up their factories and workshops. I don't like that plan anymore. I don't like that plan has resulted in Alberta hemorrhaging between $17 and $27 billion per year to Confederation, for which we get nothing back in dollars or services. I do not like that Alberta has a problem funding social programs, and we watch the news show us horrifying stories about our neighbors dying in emergency rooms waiting for treatment, while we hemorrhage tens of billions of dollars to support ideological projects and things that the Canadian government in Ottawa want to do, like send $45 billion to another country to be laundered, to fund a war that we don't have anything to do with. I don't like that plan. So let's talk Alberta as an organization. We're not saying you need to vote this way or you need to vote that way. We want to tell you where we are in Confederation, why we're there, where we could be, and let you make up your mind after that. If you don't like the idea of taking a chance and doing something without knowing every little detail, well, you're never going to get married. You're never going to move. You're never going to buy a new house or an old house, certainly not an old house. You're not going to buy a classic car because you don't have a plan. You're going to do something that you believe is right for you, and you're going to overcome the obstacles after you do it, correct? So let's talk about what the opportunity actually is. This is the key, the absolute core of Let's Talk Alberta. This is what we want to talk about. In October, you folks are going to be asked a question on Alberta sovereignty. And no, it's not the question that many of you wanted. It's not the question that I wanted. It is a question that will affect the future of Alberta nonetheless. It is a question that may or may not give the government a mandate to pursue or not pursue Alberta independence. That's an important question, correct? Yes. How many other countries on this planet offer that type of question to their citizens on a silver platter? Some do, yes, some do. But I'll tell you right now, it's not always as easy as just collecting signatures and asking your government to do it. Since 1990, there's been 38 new countries formed across the globe. 20% of those required people to send their sons and daughters to die, to fight for it, to bleed, to lose limbs, so that they could have the opportunity to get the question that we're getting in October. That is the opportunity. That is why we need to start talking about these things. Yes, it's important to have a plan on what we're going to do, consider how our government's going to look, what our currency is going to be. Of course, we need to think about those things. But if we only focus on those things and we fail to understand the significance and the relevance of the blessing and the gift that you are getting given to you for free in October, what a waste. What an absolute waste. What a disrespect to the people who have fought for freedom. We stand up here sometimes and we get people saying, how could you talk about these things? How could you suggest that we could pursue something like this? You're spitting on the graves of those who fought and died for the flag. I am less concerned about the flag that somebody fought under than the reasons why they fought. And I'll tell you, the vast majority of people that fought on behalf of Canada fought for freedom. They fought so that you folks would have the opportunity to remain free. They didn't fight and die for your freedom. They fought and they died so that you would have the chance to make sure that you continue to be free. That's why, let's talk Alberta. Obviously my opinion, most people know by now, judging from the color of my shirt, that I believe the Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. That is my opinion. I'm allowed to say that. I can host a town hall and I can tell you folks what my opinions are. Even if my opinions mean something like ending a relationship with a nation. That's a blessing as well. And that's why we include the Canadian flag up here. Because I am grateful for the blessing to live in a place where I can talk to you folks about these things openly and freely. And all I have to worry about is some kind of nut jobs that don't like me coming in and yelling at me sometimes, or maybe, trying to get physical, but that's very rare. But the government's not banging on my door and throwing me in jail. Yet. Well, some interesting bills are passing in Parliament, so we'll see. I know people who lived behind the Iron Curtain in Poland. And back then they were quite young. And they tell me stories about wanting political change because they were tired of standing in bread lines. They wanted political change. And to do it, as a child, they had to smuggle pamphlets. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That's the only way, the only method you have to make political change, is to send your children with a backpack full of pamphlets, knowing full well that if they get caught, they'll be beaten or jailed, even though they're children. Can you imagine? I know people that have done that. And so when I started to connect the dots on what this question means, what this conversation about Alberta sovereignty means, all of a sudden, it's not about pipelines, it's not about economics, it's not about Mark Carney. It's not about any of those things. It's about the opportunity for self-determination and the responsibility that comes with being asked a question like that. If we go into that referendum and we're looking at that ballot and we're still confused about it, if we don't know the facts, if we don't know exactly why we should choose one option or the other, what an irresponsible thing for us to do. How disrespectful to the sacrifices that people have made to ensure that we can answer those questions. We have a duty and a moral obligation to talk about these things. Not to cancel each other or say that, you can have a float in the parade and you can't, or you can put this flag up or you can't, but to talk to each other and make sure that when we answer that question, our answer is, it's the best answer we can give, that it has the best chance of success for not just us, because let's face it, most of us in this room, we're not going to really reap the benefits of the prosperity that Alberta independence could bring. It's going to be our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids. We have a moral obligation to talk about these things. And I would invite anybody, if you disagree with my opinion that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable, please challenge me on it. Because I don't want to make the wrong decision either. If you have some silver bullet, not physically, if you have some, I got to rephrase that. If you have some debate point that could miraculously change my position and bring me to a place where I believed that Alberta independence was detrimental to my children's future, I need to hear it. because I don't want to make the wrong decision. So challenge me and challenge each other. But if not, if you wish to challenge me and debate me on this subject, and I do what I generally do, and I take your point and I turn it around and I show you why that's a reason why Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable, I would plead with you to have an open mind. And I know this isn't an easy thing to do because this is an emotional conversation, very emotionally charged. We have deep connections to that flag, to this country. Most of us in this room are patriotic. We love what Canada was when we were younger. We remember what it felt like to know that the country we lived in was free and there was opportunity. And the government they would never, ever lock us in our homes or tell us that we couldn't meet at a coffee shop for political purpose. We grew up knowing those things. But that's changed. And now we experience different emotions. We experience an emotion of the loss of what we believed Canada was. And it forces us to think with our brain instead of our heart. Because this thing, your heart will lie to you. I've realized throughout this thing that, and actually I realized this at Remembrance Day, as I was watching a screen, glorifying war. There's women dancing in an airplane hangar, and they're dressed in World War II aviators' outfits, and the 50s, the big hair and the makeup and bubbly. And I'm thinking, this is not what Remembrance Day is about. Remembrance Day is about remembering the sacrifices. It's not about women dancing in an airplane hangar with smiles on their face. It's about 18-year-old men dead on the beach. Things that we never want to experience again. And then I realized that it was the patriotism around the flag that was blinding people to the negative emotions that we should be paying attention to and remembering to not experience again. And patriotism blinds us to the failings of our nation, sometimes to our own detriment. So when people give me the I'm patriotic argument, I've got a lot to say now. I am patriotic, but I am more concerned about maintaining the freedom and the opportunity that I had when I was young. I want to make sure my kids have it. I absolutely refuse to allow any person to drag my family into the New World Order without putting up a fight. And I believe in my heart, and I know in my brain, that the majority of Albertans are with me on that point. And if the case can be made that the only way to preserve the values of our youth, to preserve the Canada, what we knew, is to self-determine, and we have the opportunity to do so, handed to you freely on a silver platter, we have a responsibility and a moral obligation. So when you attend these meetings, I really hope that you challenge my position. I want you to. But I also hope that you leave here with more information than you came with. I hope that you're motivated to participate in this amazing opportunity we have. And I hope that you become ambassadors, maybe not even for Alberta. I used to say ambassadors for independence. I'm going to say ambassadors for conversation. I hope that you become ambassadors for conversation in your communities and you start talking to people. Whether you're on the Federalist side or the independent side, have the conversations. This is how we change the world. Don't worry, there will be a Q&A right shortly. We've gone from a place where there's a lot of old farmers in this room, so you know what I'm talking about. We go sit at a coffee shop. Perhaps it's a coffee shop with the best coffee and hamburgers in Alberta, which is the Whistle Stop Cafe just up the road. And we enjoy some delicious Mother Parker's coffee, brewed fresh all the time with fresh ground coffee beans and served by very, very lovely people who actually genuinely care about your service. And we talk about things. We discuss political issues. We talk about religion. We talk about our faith over coffee. And what happens when we talk? We change the world. That's what we do. When we have the conversations and we don't allow those who want the status quo to tell us to sit down and shut up, when we start to talk, we change the world. I can tell you that from experience. There are people in this room that I sat with at tables in my restaurant talking about the conditions that we were facing in 2020 and 21 and 22, and I know we changed the world. We absolutely did. And now every Albertan has the opportunity to do the same thing, and all you have to do is talk to your neighbors. What a blessing. I think that's all I've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes. There's some coffee back there. I see there's some stuff for tea. We're going to come back and we're going to do a Q&A. And if you have a question, great. If you have a comment, perfect. If you have a challenge for me, even better. Every single one of us presenters, we want to be challenged on our opinions to make sure that we come to the best conclusion. While you're mingling around and having conversations amongst yourself and enjoying some coffee or tea, please visit the lovely Jessica back there. She also wants to have a conversation with you about purchasing some of our overpriced merch, which is pretty much the only thing that allows us to do this. Like, I haven't worked a shift at my business in how long? I've worked one shift in months. I can't remember the last time I did. I'm on the road just about every day. And if I'm not on the road, we did some food truck stuff. But if I'm not on the road, if we're not on the road, we're in an office printing out those trifolds and folding them by hand so that you folks have conversation starters. So every hat you buy or every cup you buy or every one of Ben's books you buy helps us to continue doing these things. We got to eat too. And we're very grateful for the support you give us. See you in 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm trying to keep up on it, but it's.
I know you can really focus on so many things, but it's been kept under wraps till just lately. So,
This up ahead, and then we just need 3 chairs.
Randy, can you hand me these chairs?
Did you see that?
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Can you hand me? One behind it. So, good job, Chris.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're going to get started with the Q&A right away. If you want to meander to your seats, please. Or you could stand if you want. You just have to be kind of quiet.
Forgot my books.
The first. That's good.
I want the red ensign in there.
Okay, so I forgot to arrange a volunteer to bring the microphone around. Is there somebody that wouldn't mind doing that maybe for people that have questions? Joanne? Sure. So what we'll do is if you have a question or something you want to say, try and keep it as fairly short. Just put up your hand and Joanne will come around and she'll give you the mic.
Thank you. Who's first? What?
Look at that enthusiasm.
Not
Yeah,
one question?
we
Got one?
There's a question over there.
we always have this mad stampede for asking questions every time.
Okay, thank you. 1, 2, 3, okay. Real close. Okay, I got a question. There's a bunch of MLAs in Edmonton, right? Parliament in Edmonton, and I wonder whether, and I did my research on the internet, but I couldn't find the answers. Is there a list of MLAs that are pro or con against independent Alberta, and would we be able to get that list?
Good question.
You want me to? Go ahead. Yeah? Well, we have to understand again in our system of private clubs, usually there's a whip in these clubs who wears the name because that's his job. He's usually one of the MLA that makes sure that all the MLA fall in line with either the leader or the position of the party. So I don't believe that you will see any list of MLAs in favor of because the UCP will definitely not allow it, well, you already know about the NDP. So these are the two parties represented right now in our province. A couple of independent guys, maybe that you can ask personally. Maybe Pete Guthrie or others are for, but it's very, very minimal, and it causes a lot of discomfort as well within the UCP, because basically the position of Daniel Smith right now is asking everybody to get on stage with Carney, Nenshi, and all the others that are against it. So.
We have to keep in mind that those people who sit in the legislature in Edmonton are politicians. And one must consider that politicians' primary objective once they're elected is to get elected again. So what they may very much have a lot of, some of them, I'm sure many of them have a lot of sympathy for the independence movement, but they're not going to come out and inhibit their chances of re-election by taking one side or the other very vociferously at this stage of the game. They're just not going to do it because their primary objective is to stay in office.
I think they're going to have a lot of trouble, though. Anytime the government is unified for something that they're telling us that we need to do for our own good, I'm wary of that.
True enough.
Any other questions? Oh, that's handy.
I have a statement more than a question. One of the things that I'm very concerned about, of course, is there's a number of people, including the Alberta Prosperity Project and Stay Free Alberta. Some of the people in there are looking for a special general meeting of the UCP and the potential of eliminating the leader of the party. And I think that's going to cause a lot of trouble. My preference would be that we, as Albertans, especially UCP members, ask that the UCP party calls a snap election, gets Daniel Smith or the UCP re-elected for a 4-year term, and then we have the referendum, so that the referendum is not going to be mirrored up or mucked up with the potential of Daniel Smith losing her leadership by people who are very upset with things. I'm very upset with her as well. But I think it's better for the UCP party itself to guarantee they have a 4-year mandate so that we do not have a problem with the NDP potentially getting into power during the time where, if we're successful and we get the right to have the second question about independence, that the NDP basically sewers the whole thing. Do you guys have any comments about that as a strategy?
I do, but you're not going to like it.
I'm saying the same thing.
I don't share that opinion. I believe that the stunt to try and trigger an SGM and have Smith replaced as leader is absolutely preposterous. I think it's a complete waste of time. It's a waste of resources. We should be spending our time and resources promoting the idea of the conversation around the referendum, right? That is what we should be doing right now. I believe that the outcome of actually accomplishing what some want to do with that, with replacing Danielle Smith with other people, and some of them who would, I completely disagree with them being leader of the party or the province. I think that would backfire in the worst way. I don't think that is anything to do with the path to Alberta sovereignty. Now, if you want to talk about the UCP in particular, I've defended, supported, been, an advocate for the UCP for quite some time, but I'm not so blind as to realize that it may not be the UCP that provide the pathway to what we need to do. We have a problem in Canada, and I was too young really to pay attention, but I remember a little bit. In the 90s, do you remember when the Reform Party came up out of nowhere? Well, it wasn't really out of nowhere, but I mean politically, it sprung up and it gained traction and people were winning seats and it was incredible. And what happened to the Reform Party? It was the same thing that happened to Wild Rose. People have this idea that they need to fear one government so much that they're willing to sacrifice their principles and values to amalgamate political parties that they don't agree with. We did that with the Reform Party, and we lost Western Canada's actual representation in the House of Parliament. We got the CPC, and yeah, they call themselves the Conservatives, but a lot of the stuff coming out of that party we don't agree with as Western Canadians. They specifically spoke out against an Alberta pension plan, which is arguably much better for Albertans. Pierre Poilievre specifically said that he wouldn't touch equalization. So many of the things that cause Western alienation, not even our conservative federal politicians will touch with a 10-foot pole. Reform Party would have. They advocated for a Triple E Senate. They advocated for some changes that the West needed because the West wanted in. But out of fear, and because we were so scared of the Liberals, we destroyed that option for Western Canada, and we have what we have today. The exact same thing happened with the Wild Rose. There was an event of which we will not speak it that happened, and it all but destroyed Alberta's alternative. I mean, the Wild Rose was the official opposition. There was traction. Alberta was poised to become the economic superpower of Canada if the Wild Rose had implemented the things they wanted to, they had gotten elected on, like the firewall letter items, employment insurance, immigration, tax collection, pension plan, policing. And instead of pursuing that boldly, out of fear, we decided, well, the alternative is so bad that we need to sacrifice elevating Alberta within Confederation, taking control of all these things, and we need to set aside our desire for autonomy just so that we can beat the NDP. And then the Wild Rose values and concepts were all but gone. And now we're left with this same choice. And I hear it all the time. I've heard it for so long. Oh, we just have to support this because if we don't, we'll get the NDP. You know what? I don't care anymore. If Albertans refuse to have the courage to make the changes necessary to achieve the outcomes they want, then we don't deserve the outcome. Right? We deserve the outcome we get. And if we have the courage to make the changes needed to achieve the goal of where we want to go, which for some people is autonomy, some people's full sovereignty, some people independence, whatever, we can only do that if we have the courage to do it. So I disagree 100% with the idea of even worrying about a leadership review. Complete waste of time. And we need to think very long and hard if we're willing to continue sacrificing our values in the name of fear, or if we have the courage to change.
My point was more of getting the UCP into a guaranteed position and not necessarily dealing with getting rid of Daniel Smith or any new leader.
Yes, sorry. I caught that. I forgot to talk about that. I do not want to do that. I don't want them to be guaranteed of anything. I don't want anyone to have a 91% approval rate. I want them to be on the ropes, and I want them to do what Albertans want to do. I don't want to see our government taking a position and advocating for a referendum outcome that even 30% or 35% of Albertans don't want. That is irresponsible. It's a complete abuse of power, in my opinion, and I want them to be worried about their jobs so that when Alberta speaks, they'll listen.
Thank you for reinforcing my message about courage.
Oh, you were whispering in my ear.
Oh, I wasn't whispering. I was speaking out loud. Just an observation. Danielle Smith, at one point in time, just a short time ago, was the most popular premier in Canada. She isn't anymore. She also had a tremendous approval rate right here in Alberta. It's down a whole bunch now. There's a lot of people angry with Danielle Smith. I have some sympathy for her because she's walking a tightrope, and I think if she's going to walk that tightrope, she should walk it. In other words, let's not talk about a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Let's see what the people want. Let's find out what the people need. Let's pay attention to them. Let's have the referendum. I don't like the idea of having a referendum to poll us on whether or not we want to have a referendum. I'd like her to do what she's able to do, which is to call a referendum on independence. She can do that. She has every right legally to do that, and she could if she wanted. There as far as going to the membership, I'm going to go to the annual general meeting, but I'm going to go there to support the idea that there is a majority of people in the UCP membership who support independence. The leadership of the UCP needs to know that. They need to feel it. Do I think we need to get rid of Danielle Smith? No, because I don't see a really decent alternative on the line. Now, if we have a situation where there's enough of a split in the UCP to allow the NDP to form government, great. Because my wife made a point to me the other day. She talked about, strong people produce good times. Times produce prosperity. Prosperity and good times produce weak people. Weak people produce bad times. If we allow the NDP to become the government in Alberta, we will have bad times. And out of those bad times will come strong people. What it will do is lengthen the process, but it will make the process inevitable.
I have a real treat for you folks. Like John said, I've been really supportive of Premier Smith. Even though my opinion is different from hers in that she wants a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. If there were any steps to pursue a sovereign Alberta within united Canada, I would feel differently today than I do. However, I want to invite my friend Ben to explain to you folks just some of the things that our government could do tomorrow to start laying the groundwork for a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada that they haven't done.
Yeah. Well, again, it all starts with the money. It all starts with how you manage your money. And it all starts tomorrow, if we want, by our royalties. You know that right now, at the price at $75 a barrel that we're selling 5 million barrels a day. We're cashing in around 700 million a week in royalties. Every Friday afternoon, the large oil producer has to deposit a check in an account for $700 million every week. You know where that check is deposited? Of course, we have ATB. We have 13 provincially legislated credit unions in this province. And every week, we put $700 million at the CIBC in Toronto. They do 2 to 3 million out of that money during the weekend, even if we take back that money on Monday. Why isn't that money kept in this province? Why don't we take these royalties, put it at ATB, and spread it within the 13 credit unions to the ratio to the size they are? By doing so, it would increase the lending power of every of these credit unions. And right now, you know as well, even ATB is borrowing from the CIBC to make your loans. This is unacceptable. This is something that, and you know what needs to be done for that miracle to happen? You need to have Minister Brian Jean getting in his office one morning and write a memo to his deputy minister telling him, you shut down the account at CIBC and you open a TV. Period. Brian Jean, minister, boom, it's done.
What about a referendum?
So, well, for a referendum, if you want, in this province as well, a premier can do a referendum every day if they want. And again, it speaks loudly on how Alberta perceive themselves on the political realm when you have. I will tell you something about First Nation, and it's not a very popular position, but it's a very Quebecer position. You have to know, do you consider like the Métis people as First Nation in this country as much as you know, eh? Yeah. Well, you know that the Métis people, if there was not French, there were no Métis people. Okay, so the Métis people are not First Nation. They are the result of a French colonization, and the French made friends with the Indians. That's how they colonized this country. You know that the first school opened in this country were First Nation school to teach the colonists how to speak their language. It was not to colonize the Indians. It was to make business with them. And this is how. I don't know if you ever heard of the French-Indian War. Well, that's because they were friends. That's because and in Quebec, what René Lévesque did, because he was chasing down sovereignty, he made a public announcement that all First Nation in Quebec are nations, and he will recognize them as nation, such as that you're a nation, this is your reserve, this is your nation. Outside of that, it's mine. That's fair. That's fair play. You can do whatever you do in your nation. Let us do what we want in our nation. And Quebecers are adamant about that. Know the day that a municipality in Quebec wanted to increase their golf course, and there's some Mohawk that were not happy, saying that this is our land. What did Quebec did? They brought the army in and said, go back home. Go back to your nation. Let us do what we want in our nation. And this is how we need to respect each other. When there's a judgment by a judge coming from New Brunswick, representing a First Nation who has 33 people living under reserve, blocking the will of 200,000 Albertans, this is not acceptable. This is when, as a leader of a government, you have to say, that's enough. And let us do whatever we want. And a courageous politician, premier, would have taken that and say, I will put the question in. No, like sorry guys, sorry for that little like insanity. I will put the question in. And this is what she didn't do. So, but all that to say that after that, to create our own, collect our own tax, what do we need? We need a vote at the legislature. As I know, the UCP has power at the legislature. You know what? To do our own, to collect our own pension, what do we need? If it wasn't for the, now we need to repeal Bill number 2 that she passed, because you don't need a referendum. The rule with the CPP says that the only thing they need is it's a letter coming from the premier telling them we're getting out. So all that to say that, again, I campaigned with Danielle Smith. Since she's premier, I think I spent probably 16 hours with her, which is, so she's not a friend, but for business, I spent a lot of time with her. And I respect her as a lady, but I believe that she's rendering a disservice to this province by doing what she's doing right now. And I believe that we need to take action by showing up massively on October 19 to express our will. And I'm not telling you for what to vote in that will. And that fruit salad of referendum that she created, I hope that you'll find a way to express what should be done to have courageous politicians.
Just a quick question for you. The memorandum you're talking about, Brian Jean writing, is that as valuable as the MOU with Carney? just a question.
Hi, I'm so glad to have come tonight. We are learned some new things that give me hope. And I'm wondering, the factor, Jim and I travel a lot on roads, even though he's a farmer, he's renting out most of it. And so we do have some time talking to young people, and they just have no hope and feel overwhelmed. There's nothing to be done. This is not going to work. That's not going to work. What is your reaction so far with young people? I spoke to another young person today, told her where we were going, and she said, oh, yeah, maybe, but look what's happening in Ottawa. How can, you know, are you having some good responses from young people, and how can we come alongside? They're looking for hope. I bought 2 fridge magnets from your table. Thank you, because they're talking points, you know.
Well, our young people have been, they've been conditioned to believe that their voices don't really matter, that who they are doesn't matter, they can be anything, whatever. And it's not surprising that they don't see hope. I mean, the chances of someone in their early 20s buying their own home right now it's not easy. It's not even easy for a young person to get insurance on their car. My son pays over $5,000 a year to insure his car. And yes, he's a kind of a young man and drives probably like a young man, but seriously, $5,000 a year. And that's right up until, you know, these kids are 20 years old-ish. 21, 22 even. 25. And then get a ticket, and now you're $7,000 a year. So I get it. But what we have to remember to get through to the young people is they are the hope. Yes. They're actually our hope, right? These are the next voters. These are the next MLAs. These are the next bureaucrats. They are the hope. So we have to start having these conversations with them. And it is true that we don't see very many young people in this room, although I would say the median age is probably about, what, 35, Ben?
Oh, no, 20, 25.
Yeah. What I did see, yeah. What I did see early this year was a lot of young people and entire families standing in long lineups. I don't know why they were in the lineups. In the freezing cold for hours sometimes because they knew they had to show up for something important. So they do show up, but it kind of becomes our job to take these conversations. That's why this is called Let's Talk Alberta, because we need to take the conversations where they need to go. Our young people are some of those, the people that need the conversation. And I'm going to turn it over to Ben because he's got some fantastic ideas on this.
Yeah. Well, even yesterday in Drayton Valley, I was speaking in Drayton Valley yesterday, and there was a group of 6 young ladies in their early 20s from the University of Alberta, who drove from Edmonton to come. They are studying sociology at the university, and they were curious to see what's happening. And then they came to see me afterward, and they asked me if I would be willing to go and speak at the university of that, and I say absolutely, and this is part of my plan, and that I believe it's an answer to prayer. When I believe when you walk in the way that the Lord wants you to walk, He opens doors that you cannot open yourself. And I had my office for 7 years at the U of A, and I left my office. I dropped my keys of the office the day they asked me to wear a mask to go and walk to my office. Yeah. So, but I know a lot of people at the U of A, and anyway. So and again, so my plan is to start doing maybe pizza night with that just that U of A alone. There's 235 different student associations, because every profession or every faculty, thank you. Every faculty got their association and all that. So, in fact, 2 months ago, I used to have an office on White Ave for a long time. I moved to Sylvan Lake 2-3 years ago, so I let go my office, and the people that took my office on White Ave in Edmonton, they helped me. They asked me if they can help me. There was young people, and they asked me if they can help me do my boxes because they were basically kicking me out and was late on getting my stuff out. And as we discussed, I learned that there were staffers for the NDP. And I gave them a book. I gave them my book. Hey, here, I wrote that book. And then I look at one of the guys, say, can you organize something with me? So they did organize. I spent 4 hours with 6 young people, all staffers of the NDP, none of them born here, none of them Christian, all different religion. And within 40 minutes of respectful conversation, I was able to have them accept the concept that we need to protect the Judeo-Christian values of this province. So again, it's just a question of talking and talking honestly. Like when I open the conversation with them, I open the conversation telling them, listen, you will read stuff that will shock you in there. I will say stuff that are shocking to you because I'm white, I'm married, I have 4 kids, I'm evangelical Christian, a lover of Jesus, and I'm super right-wing, like Daniel Smith is a lefty compared to what I am, and so I might say stuff that might shock you and disturb you. If so, please tell me what disturbed you. And then the conversation, there's a couple of subjects that say, I said it was, so we just agreed, so, okay, let's not talk about that. I think it's too contentious. Let's go back to that. And I had a wonderful 4 hours, and now they're organizing other meeting for me like that as soon as the university started back. So my plan is to organize a smaller gathering because they are more comfortable in there at both the Montreal University, University of Calgary, University of Edmonton, not Edmonton, but University of Alberta, and to open conversation, because I believe these are the ones that can move a lot of people. And my ask always, even yesterday, my ask to the student there was that I want each of you to find 3 friends, each of you, and organize a little meeting like that. And then when I will sit with your 3 friends, all of you, I will ask all of your 3 friends to find 3 others. And let's talk. No? Let's talk Alberta. Yeah.
So there's a question online. Ryan asks, so should all of us use Alberta credit unions instead of the big banks? Oh, yeah. What would that benefit Alberta, no matter what the future outcome is?
Well, definitely, this is super important. I will tell you a little story again with Desjardins Quebec, 7.8 million members out of the 9 million of population. I will tell you something. If the fiat currency collapses tomorrow, Canadian dollars crashes, Desjardins is so prominent in that province that everybody will keep on putting gas in. Desjardins just have to say, you know what, guys? All the Canadian dollar in your bank account are now Desjardins dollar. And because everybody got an account there, nobody will budge. You will keep on doing your grocery. You will even keep on paying your insurance because they have the insurance company. And this is what to be sovereign. We have to help and to put our money in this province, control under regulation of this province. Amongst the 13 credit unions, I've worked very closely. I toured for almost a year with Brett Olin, the president of Beauvalet Credit Union. I'm the one that opened his 3 new branches since that tour. The latest one we opened is in Red Deer here, and we did Calgary at the Freshman Local Market. Now there's a branch there. So I will tell you something, like credit unions are you can build the board. So since I'm working with Brett Olin, the board now of his credit union, the people who decide and the chairman and all that, are all freedom fighters. I mean, he set the tone, but after that, there's election, there's an AGM, at the AGM, so I invite you to, sometimes it's very inconvenient. Sometimes you need to drive an hour, like my bank account is in Cochrane. I need to drive 2 hours to go in person. But 2 things. First, when I pick up the phone, I can speak to somebody there. And secondly, when I show up, they know who I am. And they can give me stuff that no other institution can do. And their limitation right now, like Beauvalley, the problem they have is that their capacity of lending is proportional to the long-term deposit that they have. And right now, they're extended to 98.5% of what they can lend. And this is why I'm saying, if we start, even the government, putting the royalty money in there, right now the CIBC keep a $2 billion float. Well, a $2 billion float spread among the 13 credit unions, for them, represent 20 billion potential lending locally to people they know, to people that know your name, that know why you're lending, to your son that wants to buy a car, and because they knew you, they will, I mean, I helped a lady in Cochrane, a friend of mine, her husband passed away, and she had an account at Royal Bank. She asked me to help her in the estate. We took an appointment at 3:30 in the afternoon at the Royal Bank in Cochrane. We sit in front of the guy, and then we're there to shut down the accounts. And the guy look at us, log on his computer, and then do a very candid smile, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, but our estate department is in Toronto and it's closed now. You'll have to come back tomorrow." This is inferior rating. This is unacceptable. At 3:30 in the afternoon in Alberta, that you cannot get service from a bank, like this is unacceptable. And why? Because it's in Toronto and they're closed. Like, we shouldn't tolerate that. So yes, shut down your account at TD and all the rest and put in credit union locally.
More questions? Yeah.
One question I have, though, the local credit union here now is amalgamated, I guess, with Service, but their board of directors, you had to agree with DEI. You had to be very acceptance of that to even think about going on their board. So can we trust our credit unions, or what is the best route to go?
Well, I mean, you need to choose your credit union, and the credit union is led by a board, and you can put your name to be on the board. So at least there's more chance than a bunch of shareholders of RBC or CIBC or to have stuff change. And again, it might be not practical because you might have a service credit union there. If you don't agree with what they think, their philosophy, well, then you can turn around and drive, a couple of hours. Now everything is online anyway. So you can decide to open your account at BVCU instead of Service. And it's the same, that's the other stuff, the other caveat I have as well for ATB. ATB is Alberta Treasurer Branch. It is a super work bank. They are the one that froze the most bank account when the feds called in. And there's no reason for that because the Minister of Finance of Alberta is the boss, ultimately. So again, it's a question of backbone. It's a question of spine. And it's a question of making a decision to take over that organization and clean it up, a bit like they've done with AHS. The problem is that there was a scandal in the 80s with the government in power, with ATB, and then they passed a bunch of stupid regulation that if you're MLA, you can have an account there, and they're like, stuff that doesn't make sense. To the contrary, we need to change the board of ATB, and we need to, but all that comes from a government that tells stuff. The worst thing you can hear is a minister telling you that he's a friend with his deputy minister. Because the deputy minister is not there to be the friend of the minister. He's there to protect his little castle. And I believe, myself, when I went in 2006 for the federal government, I spent a year in my cabinet. I was at war with the deputy minister every day. The first thing we've done, first meeting we had with her, all the staffer from the minister, we told her, her name was Mrs. Dory, and she was I called her the pit bull in front of her, and that's the nickname I kept on calling her. And the first meeting we had with her said, from now on, you cannot sign a single check from your ministry. Everything goes to the minister. Oh, you cannot do that? No, I can't. Well, check us. Yes, we're doing that. And then the next day she comes and said, you know what, Mr. Trudeau, I have 40 people in my communication department. I've put 2 full-time to sync you into your government. I said, good luck. Be my guest. And that was the atmosphere of the office. Not very nice, but we switched that ministry within 6 months. And this is what needs to happen when you want to change something. The bureaucrats are not our friends. They are there to protect their job. So again, with ATB, again, it's a question of directive. They're going to say of switching the board, saying this is what you're doing from now on. These are the rules. And then for the credit union, no service has the right to be as woke as they want if the member likes it, but there's 12 others. No? And yes, it's inconvenient, but if you want real sovereignty, sometimes stuff are not easy.
While we have you still as a captive audience, we're going to pass around the little buckets. If you appreciate what we're doing and you want to help us keep doing it, please consider throwing a few coins in there or something. If you don't want to, that's totally up to you. But I mean, this is one instance where I'll say peer pressure is our friend, and I hope you see your friends donating and it makes you want to as well. It does help us do this. The halls cost money. You know, we cover the costs of the speakers getting to these places and things like that. And we have some other initiatives that we're working on that are going to be quite expensive, and we're setting the bar kind of high, but I really want to do it. I have this vision that we get this type of information to every single household in Alberta. I want to do massive information mail-outs. So people go to the post office and they get a Let's Talk Alberta flyer. And the Let's Talk Alberta flyer isn't telling them what to do, it's just telling them some facts about Alberta, about where we are, those types of things, and helping them to have the conversations where they're at. And when you guys donate to us, you're supporting those types of initiatives as well, so I thank you in advance. I hope there's more questions, because I want to make sure you're still captive while the buckets are going around.
There's two there.
Here it is.
Hello. No. Do you know that's the wrong flag for World War I and II?
Can't understand you. Say again.
That red flag there, we didn't use that in World War I or II.
Yeah, that's true. This flag,
It's a red ensign.
it was controversial. It didn't represent Western Canada, and most of Western Canada, I think all of it, actually voted against it. And that was still our national flag. It's different for me because I grew up with it. It meant something different, but there are some people in this room who remember the flag debate. And that was just one of the many. I'm going to be quiet and let someone who remembers it quite well, because I think he was probably the age I am now back then.
We did not want, as a matter of fact, when they had the vote in Parliament to adopt that flag, not one Western member of Parliament voted in favor of it. They all voted against it. The reasoning behind it was that the leaf that's on that flag is the sugar maple.
No, it's not.
The sugar maple doesn't exist on this side of the Ontario border.
Oops, honey, that's not the sugar maple.
That's what it's supposed to be. It's the one they used to make the flag was the sugar maple. And there was a proposal to use the Manitoba maple or the mountain maple instead, because that tree grew all the way across Canada, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. So that's the story. Now, the other aspect of this that you may or may not know is the red ensign is still an official flag of Canada. You can fly the red ensign, and it is recognized internationally and by our own government as a legal flag for this country. It's the country my father fought under in the Second World War. It's the flag that flew when I first joined the military back when I was 12 years old. And it's still a legitimate flag. If you want to fly it, feel free. If you want to fly it and protest, great. What year was it switched over? 1965.
The 30%, 1965.
Jess, are you asking if Ben has any more books? They're all gone. However, Ben, where can people find your book? Amazon, right?
Amazon.
Yeah, you can find Ben's book on Amazon, and hopefully at the next events he'll bring more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
You know,
have-
the flag thing, this is why we should tell our children, wait until you're a little older and learn a little bit more before you get a tattoo, so that they don't tattoo the maple leaf on their back like I did. And actually, I've got nothing against it, but it's just a fun little fact.
I have another question. I was talking to somebody about Kuzma today. They brought it up, actually. And that expires the end of June or July or something like that. And if there isn't a new one, they said Costco was leaving town.
Oh, no.
Did you say Costco is leaving town? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, do you want to talk?
I had the question here.
I think it was just a statement. It's not a question, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to respond to that. I think, I can't speak from certain knowledge here, but even if CUSMA is allowed to expire, there's a 6-month period afterward where it remains in effect. And that gives both governments, all three governments, time to sit down and make some sense out of things. When you have the President of the United States saying we need nothing from Canada, when 70% of their imported oil comes from Canada, when 65, 70% of their potash for making fertilizer comes from Canada, when much of the rare earth minerals comes from Canada, the statement that we don't need anything from Canada is patently ridiculous. And I think that the government of the United States is wise enough to recognize that. And even if it's allowed to expire, there's still that 6-month period where I think common sense will take over.
Plus, we have to be cognizant that in public affairs and in international affairs, nothing ends abruptly. There's even in our law the estopel called, so meaning that even if something has elapsed or is not valid anymore, if you keep on going according to what was there, it's considered still there. And it's the same thing. Be careful of all the fear mongering. No, I heard the debate between Keith Wilson and what's his name, Kenny, yeah, Kenny was telling people, oh, the day after they won't allow you to keep your Canadian passport, which is absolutely false, because Canada allow multiple citizenship. In fact, our prime minister had his English passport when he came prime minister. So Canada allow multiple citizenship, and then the other thing that he was talking about is that the airplane would stop flying. Well, again, that's false, because all the air traffic is under the IATA rules, which is headquartered in Montreal, by the way. But it's just fear mongering, and there's nothing, even CUSMA or their stuff. It's not like if it expired there, it's not like the oil stopped flowing the next morning. There's always grace period. Plus, there's always as well. At the end of the day, business is business. No, like when you have a refinery, you know what? There's a refinery in Texas. Most refineries in Texas run with the Alberta crude, and you cannot stop a refinery. Everybody knows that. Like you cannot just stop the supply. You're going to scrap your entire refinery. It's called the refiners. I worked for a guy that had small refineries. I was telling him if he could do something with the Bowden refinery here, and that shut down. And the first thing he told me, no, the system got atmosphere. So there was contact with the atmosphere for the system. So that scrapped the entire refinery. So all that to say that there's other consideration than just the basic agreements.
Okay, I just want to start by saying, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but I agree with
Ben.
100% on your opinion on the UCP party and Danielle Smith and replacement and all that. But what I wanted to ask is, this is the second one of these I've been to, and it kind of feels like we're preaching to the choir here, right? And I'm just curious I know we're talking about plans, but I think we need a campaign of some sort to get the yes vote going, especially with younger people. And I was wondering what there is for a plan to have a campaign for the October 19th vote.
Sure, there are plenty of campaigns going on right now. There's third-party advertisers popping up all over the place, and you can support any one of those you want. They're the ones that are specifically campaigning for an outcome. Corey Morgan has one, Kathy Flett has one, Jason Levine has one. I'm sure there's others. Thomas Lukasik has one, although he didn't register with Elections Alberta for some reason. So that's the mechanism for campaigning. What we're doing is we're encouraging the conversation so that when people are approached by somebody campaigning for an outcome, they know what it's all about. This is our part in this, is the information, the conversation, not the campaigning. So you're absolutely correct. And if you do a quick Google search or look on Facebook, you'll find, I'm sure you could find a half a dozen at any given time, and I would support whichever one suits your fancy at the time.
By the way, Keith Wilson is starting one tomorrow morning, so it will be announced. So yeah, Keith Wilson, yeah, he's starting his tomorrow morning. So all that to say that, like there's, and it's good. Like other people, mention the lack of leadership or the lack of this and that, and know what? Again, in the '95 referendum in Quebec, we even when we joined the yes camp. Our party had our own campaign, our own strategies, our own people. The PQ has its own, and the Bloc has its own. We were separated, and then there was an explosion of small group. There was like the woman circle farmer for the yes, and there was the lawyers for the yes, and the dentist for the yes, and all these groups start just like. Evangelizing their own people, and it ended up with thousands of groups like that campaigned beside the three main pillar. That was the three parties, main parties in '95. So it is, and mainly now that the only thing weird in that campaign to me is that there's no involvement of official political party, which I believe it's a blessing somehow at this stage we're at, because we're just creating that base, and I believe we shouldn't at this point wish for an agglomeration.
If you go back to my 10-minute talk earlier on tonight, I asked that you exhibit courage and do things that are frightening or scary or involved. And I think that when you look at what is happening in this province now, we can't look for leaders to do this. We can't look for the Martin Luther King or the this or that or the other, or the Mahatma Gandhi. You are the leaders. It's on you, it's on us. This movement will only succeed if Albertans, the grassroots of Albertans, want it to succeed and work at it. So I'm here to tell you that you guys are in charge. It's up to you. And I know you can do it, and I know you can do it because you're here. So I know that when we get together like this, we symbiotically get a little courage from those who sit beside us. And sometimes when we're by ourselves out there in the middle of nowhere, it's more difficult. But you'll still do it. And not only you, but everywhere we go, the same thing must happen. It's up to the people that we talk to. This has to grow from the bottom up. My wife she constantly talks about government by the people, that we are in charge. Well, you're in charge. Take charge.
Sorry. Go ahead. Do the applause thing, and I'll wait. Thanks. I don't know if you guys follow the music industry much, but there's a band that has a song and it says something like, "When we stand together, that's when we win." Does anyone know any band that might have had that in their lyrics somewhere, maybe from here? Yeah.
Prairie Fire.
No.
The question I have is, would you know what kind of the time interval there is between federal government freezing the account to actually freezing the account, making the decision of freezing the account? I know you have personal experience, but and the second question is, what are the chances of unilaterally claiming independence and just the government and just do it? Thank you.
Well, to answer your second question, with the current government, the chances are absolutely zero. Like, I do not believe that would ever happen. You would have to have a government elected on a mandate of sovereignty, for starters, and then the will of the people would have to manifest from a referendum or a vote of some sort, and then that, that could be considered, but zero under the current conditions. Your first question, I didn't catch the first part of it. What was your first question?
What is the time interval between the federal government taking decision to install capital control on the withdrawal from your personal accounts to actually banks stopping your transactions?
Yeah, that's interesting because that frozen the bank account was a declaration of the minister done that Freeland did, and the bank took on themselves before even receiving any memo to do it. So I can speak again with Brett Olin, who's the CEO of Bow Valley. When he heard that, he started laughing. He said, what are they doing? And then he realized that all the banks were seizing bank account. And then something like the next day, he received an email, and basically he just answered that email, said, you know what? He said, I will not freeze any of the bank account of my owners, like this is a co-op, so I won't freeze any bank account of my people unless there's a judge that tell me that bank account needs to be seized. So, and that was his position. And this is what all bank that respect itself should have done, but they haven't. And now the every bank that is federally regulated even increase a notch because the federal always use very isolated moment to pass broad law, and there's a report for basically a system that reports for fraudulent that every bank have to report. This is a federal system, is the CIFCO or something like that. I don't remember the name exactly, but basically now the federal government has invested over close to $1 billion in that system to be able to include AI in it and identify certain transaction. So to answer your question, if you have an account now at any of the big 5 bank of Canada, it's instant. They will do it like within seconds of receiving an order. If you have an account at Bow Valley Credit Union, it's going to be instant before they receive an answer to go pound sand. So it depends again where you have your account.
Are you okay, or do you have to follow up? Okay.
So there's an online question here I'll go through real quick. The question is, if the citizens held their own provincial referendum and was successful and had it certified by a third party, would that vote be binding to the provincial government? No, it isn't. No.
Do you have a question here?
But it would certainly send a message.
Okay, so
Really close to your face.
so the petition for a referendum was a citizens' initiative, and over 300,000 people signed that, probably everybody in this room included. And how can it change gears to a referendum, or is that even possible for it to become a referendum in October, to have a referendum when it, like, how did that change gears, or has it?
Well, it's the answer is in the legislation itself. Like, the legislation was enacted by the provincial government under the Kenney regime and then altered by the current administration. And the wording of the legislation, actually it was changed this go around so that it was non-binding. And the government always had the leeway to pick the date and to actually put their own question. So it's I think it was one of these things where sometimes politicians give us something that we ask for, but they give it to us in a way that they didn't really, like the referendum on equalization. Albertans thought, oh, we're going to do this referendum and we're going to vote to end equalization. And then we have this referendum and 62% of Albertans said we want to change this, and nothing happened because it was never intended to happen. And we're kind of faced with the same thing with the Citizens Initiative Referendum Act. It's only as good as the government who is administering it at the time. And that's what happened in this case.
Well, I think what I got out of what John Reil said is we got to stick to our guns. And I mean, we signed that thing in our hearts. I think everybody signed it, thought it was a referendum for independence. And we have to somehow dig our heels in and, I guess, dig our heels in.
I don't disagree with that at all, but the fact is we have a referendum of sorts coming up. And it has a question that is related to independence for the province of Alberta. Yes, it's a question to say, shall we ask a question, but it's still there. And the pressure that we put on our politicians is the pressure that results from picking that solution overwhelmingly by the people of Alberta. Ralph Klein said it best. He said, I don't tell the people what to do. I find out which direction they're going and get in front of them. We need to force that on the government we have right now. They need to know where we are going, and they need to get in front of us. Okay. One other thing I'd like to mention is that the Stay Free Alberta tried to get a stay against the decision by the judge that prevented the counting or the certification of our referendum. That stay was not issued today. The judge that heard the argument for the stay said that she saw many problems with the decision that was rendered by the judge, but she is reserving her decision on that stay for a period of time. We don't know how much time that is. So it could be a week or it could be a year. We don't really know. But the fact is that we have a judge now that said basically the same thing other lawyers have said, that decision by that judge was absolutely ridiculous. And eventually it will be overturned by a superior court. Whether it will be in time for us to do what we want to do or not is a moot question. We don't care. What we care about right now is the referendum that's on the horizon for October right now.
I just need to apologize. Indeed, it was the sugar maple. Sorry, honey.
I'm going to get a piece of paper.
I want it notarized.
Okay.
I want it notarized.
I'd just like to know, do you know the exact question that's going to be on, like how it's going to be worded? Because the first one was really clear whether you wanted in or out. But is that question on the 19th of October now going to be that clear?
It's on the website. It's on the Government of Alberta website. I'm going to try and do it off the top of my head. So as far as I can recall, option A is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? Option B is, do you agree that the Government of Alberta should begin the legal process required to hold a binding referendum on Alberta independence? So it's an A or a B. It's a multiple choice question. Let's see how close I got. Ben's going to look it up.
That sounds close.
And you know, it isn't it's not the question that many people were anticipating, but it is a question that moves one step closer to a question on self-determination. So as frustrating as it is, I'm at least grateful that we have that, but we got to continue working and pushing to make sure that we get what we want, which is the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question on ballot question 10. So it sounds like a bingo, eh? So basically it says, should Alberta remain a province of Canada? So you will have that, then you can check that. Or should the Government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada? It's very simple. And I will just comment on that legal process. So that legal process reference to the Clarity Act. And so the Clarity Act was enacted in 2000 by the federal government following a 1998 judgment of the Supreme Court because after the 95 referendum, They basically, Chrétien as a Supreme Court, would that referendum would have been binding? Is it legal for a province to leave the Constitution? And then the Supreme Court's short answer was yes, it is. So then what they've done, they made that law. And what they created 7 federal gates that you have to go through to be able to separate. And basically that question lead us to that. So if we say yes, we will start that process according to the Clarity Act 2000. By the way, it was accepted on a Monday at the Parliament of Canada, and on a Tuesday morning at the Legislature of Quebec, it was voted as a provincial law in Quebec that said that we will ignore the Clarity Act in any case for any referendum in this province.
We've got a question.
There's a couple of questions there. Who's got the mic out there?
I got it.
It's one here first.
Okay.
So when you look on the Referendum Act, it says that there's 3 cases that the time of a referendum can be held. Do you guys know if there's been clarification on the B? The B says that, separately as a standalone referendum on a date provided in the order. So have you guys heard the legal part on that as why it's not a standalone referendum? How can they have 10 on one sheet or one time?
They have a piece of paper.
Well, because that referendum on October 19th, it's not a referendum under the Citizen Act. It's a referendum ordered by the Premier. So when a referendum is ordered by the Premier, it has its own rules. So the rule that you're reading right now is the rule that is linked to a referendum initiated by the Citizen Act, or the Citizen Initiative Act. And that referendum that's coming is not there. It's not initiated by the Citizen Initiative Act. It's initiated by the Premier herself and the legislation.
So A is not Lukaszik's. So 10A is not Lukaszik's question?
Well, they say it is because they wanted just to put his question. But it's not formulated that way. And again, they did that to make sure that any legislation found in the Citizen Initiative Act wouldn't be applied to that referendum.
Okay.
Will not be applied because it is not a referendum initiated by the Citizen Initiative. It's a referendum 100% initiated by the provincial government and the legislature. Well, it's hijack. I mean, it's a lesser problem. I mean, it's not hijack. I mean, the other option is that to have nothing because of that judgment from that New Brunswick judge. No, so at least we have something. We have something that links us to the Clarity Act, and it's going to be fun to see that go.
Are you ready for me? Okay, so we went out, gathered signatures, people signed up and that to get our chance on the vote. The Premier comes back with this, that we are getting a referendum to see if we can have a referendum, basically, okay? What I'm wondering is, so we have the vote on this referendum coming up, is she gonna honor it if we do get a positive return on it? Or is she going to say, well, now we're going to have a referendum on the referendum to see if the other referendum was good? I mean, is this just a continuation process? Or what's going on with her?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would guess that no, she wouldn't do that. That would be 100% political suicide. Exactly. Even what's going on right now is very politically draining. Yeah. Like, she's spent a lot of political capital on maneuvering through this. So I can't see any circumstance in which she would continue to do that going forward. I think she would just defer to the people want this, so we're going to give it to them.
Okay, well, that's good to hear from somebody, but I don't trust her.
Well, it's not a question of, let's go back to the first objective of a politician once they're elected, is to get elected again. And let's talk about Ralph Klein. Let's find out where the people want to go, and I'll get in front of the parade. If we have a really solid, yes, we want to begin the process,
she will have no choice but to get in front of it in some way, even if it's to maintain neutrality and be fair in her assessment of the process and the costs and the procedures involved. She won't have any choice.
And no, I'm sorry to say that, but even the process is not very threatening for the provincial government, because she wants to apply the Clarity Act from the get-go. And if you do that, the question that will be asked at the referendum will have to be voted by the Common in Ottawa. So that will happen a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We don't know. Because the Clarity Act have 7 steps. So the Clarity Act has no definition of what is a winning referendum. It's they choose what is the threshold. It's not 50 plus 1, according to the Clarity Act. It's whatever they choose it is. It might be 70%, might be 75%, might be 60%. And then, number 2, the House of Commons has to judge the question clarity. So the Commons has to vote on if the question was clear or not. After that, number 3, it's subjective to the representativeness standard. So they will tell us that when we do a referendum, we need at least 70% participation of the First Nation, 25% participation of the LGBTQ, or whatever group they decide to do. They'll say we need that. So they will put that in. Then after that, it's if it goes, the negotiation require common approval, and after that, it requires the Senate approval, and after that, it requires the Governor General approval. And once all that is done, if we get there, then it's a 750 or unanimity formula to enable the province to leave. So
that sounds really good until you recognize the fact that the Supreme Court reference is superior to the Clarity Act. Yes. You can't do things in the Clarity Act that contravene the Supreme Court reference on independence for individual provinces. So it's at that point in time where the negotiators say the federal government is negotiating in bad faith, and we enact the final paragraph of the decision by the Supreme Court and unilaterally declare independence.
Yes, that's right. So just to be clear, no pun intended, the Clarity Act is not the only way either, right? The Clarity Act is Canada's preference on how they would agree to a province leaving. In no time, well, they've tried, but it's not accepted globally that you have to ask your oppressors or unequal partners if you can leave. International law recognizes self-determination. So if Alberta had a government like Quebec has, let's call it the Bloc Alberta Qua, and they were elected on a mandate on sovereignty and they held a referendum, then we could easily, we're not confined or shackled by the Clarity Act. And this is a hard thing for people to understand, because as a Western Canadian, we're conditioned to believe that we just have to beg for the scraps of Confederation, but that is not true. Even Canada recognizes people's right to self-determination. Our Prime Minister just recognized Palestine as a sovereign state. Canada was one of the first to recognize Kosovo. This isn't a new thing. So the idea that we're shackled by federal legislation or Supreme Court rulings, knowing that Alberta would want to withdraw from that system, that makes zero sense. So I don't want people to get too caught up in that kind of thing, and I want people to understand and talk about the opportunity for self-determination, and that we can get it regardless of what Canada's preference is.
Absolutely. The other thing that I would encourage you to remember is that when you talk about, gee, we want to leave Canada and we must obey Canadian law to get out. Yeah. We're trying to get out from under Canadian law. We don't want to obey Canadian law. We want independence. And there is a way in Canadian law, theoretically, that we can achieve it. If they block us, we give them the middle finger and carry on anyway.
I just want to say that again, the day after the Clarity Act was passed, Quebec passed a law saying that we will not Quebec will not respect the Clarity Act. And I will dig out that bill and translate it in English for the sake of, because we could do the same as a province. So we could say, you know what, Quebec did it, Ottawa never fought it. I mean, Ottawa stopped fighting Quebec since almost the referendum. Quebec does a bunch of anti-constitutional stuff right now, and Ottawa don't move, don't do anything. Like they voted that the MLA don't need to pay allegiance to the King in the same day that we adopted the sovereign Alberta within United Canada. A year later, they passed a law saying that they don't want royal assent anymore, that the lieutenant governor is just a clerk to tell Ottawa what's happening in their legislature, but once it's voted in, it's in law in Quebec, and Ottawa didn't move. No lawsuit, nothing. After that, they went and put a for sale, so they refused to pay because they're collecting their own tax, so they can negotiate that way, no? They refused to pay the bill for the lieutenant governor, and they put a for sale sign in front of his house, no? Saying if you want him to stay there as your clerk, well, you pay for him. And then the last thing they've done, when King Charles came to do a speech throne in Ottawa, the last one, when Carney was very proud of him to bring the king to do the throne speech for the opening of the. Well, while the king was speaking, Quebec was in session, and it was an unanimous vote in the legislation of Quebec. The five-party unanimously voted to send a message to the king that we don't want the crown to intervene in Quebec anymore. On any aspect. And they paid a process server to serve the king when he came out of the Commons with that new legislation. And again, Ottawa didn't do anything. So, yeah, these are good examples.
You know, I have some admiration for Quebec that I didn't used to have. They read the Constitution, and they know what it is. Did you know that the Constitution actually demands that all laws are passed in our representative houses, in our legislature or in Parliament? That's what the Constitution says. It does not say that we debate and then send laws for royal assent to be enacted by a sovereign. The Constitution says laws must be passed in our legislature, period. Quebec knows that. Why does the rest of Canada continue to operate actually outside of the Constitution? I've had people sit in my cafe with me and argue with me that every piece of legislation passed here is irrelevant because they stand under the Constitution. And the Constitution demands that our laws are passed in a way that's inconsistent with what our legislature is doing. Quebec knows this, and they leverage that.
You still remember your question?
I think I remember my question. It's just more a thought process than anything. I'm going back to they're telling us that 50% plus one is probably not good enough for us to separate on. You know, there seems to be a concern about that in Ottawa. Now, what I'm wondering is that if it's not good enough for us, like if they say we've got to be 70%, you know, or 70-30, 60-40, whatever, should that same rule not apply to the federal and provincial legislatures as well, and every other voting body in the country? Otherwise, we're being discriminated against.
That's a really good point. We don't get to pick and choose the Democratic bar for anything. And 50% plus one would be considered a majority vote and should pass. However, that would absolutely guarantee that the issue would be tangled up in court and challenged and riots in the street. It would be very low chance of success. In less than 10 or 15 years, right? So the idea that we need more for it to be valid that's not correct. 50% plus one is a majority. But in order to achieve the outcome at a timeline that allows the people in this room to experience it, it would have to be a lot higher. Yeah.
Actually, if I can interrupt a minute, 2 weeks ago in Parliament, the Bloc did us a favor.
Yeah.
And they made sure that not only the members, but the clerk of the Parliament, can't remember what his real title is, they stipulated in the Parliament that 50 plus one is the recognized majority, not only in Canada, but across the world. They'd actually have a hard time in law fighting that one. But I agree with Chris, we need more.
My feeling is that we had 61.78% vote in favor of renegotiating or even eliminating equalization payments. If those people come out to vote this October, we should be well over the 50% plus one. And those people that voted in order to modify or eliminate our equalization must understand that this is the only way, even if it's just to theoretically apply pressure to the federal government, this is the only way they'll ever get satisfaction on equalization, is by voting to begin the process to have a binding referendum. There is no other way.
We have a question here.
Yeah, I think we need to circle back a little bit here. I missed something, or maybe I'm dense. But this question, the referendum question, one part is, should Alberta separate? Do you vote yes for Alberta separating from Canada? The other
No, that's not actually correct. The first part of the question is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? That's the first part.
Should Alberta remain the province of Canada?
Should Alberta remain the province of Canada?
Okay.
And the second part is, or should the government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada? I'm actually out of breath
Okay.
saying that.
All right, so it sounds to me like if you vote no that Alberta should separate, or you vote yes to have a referendum on a referendum, I mean, it sounds like it both ends up in the same place, but is this designed to split the vote?
No, they're both yes questions. It's a multiple choice.
Okay.
So it's either, do you agree with the first position that Alberta should remain Canada, or do you agree with the second position that the government should begin the legal process?
Okay.
It's not a yes or a no.
It's not a yes or no on both questions.
It's an A or B.
Should Alberta remain in Canada? Sounds to me like it's a yes or no question.
No, it is not. It's not. There will be a box beside one option and a box beside the other option. You would select which option you prefer. And if at any point any of these things are unclear, when we hold elections, the ballots, there's an instruction pamphlet with your ballot. So read the instructions and make sure that you understand the instructions. If you don't understand the instructions, you can actually ask for clarification and make sure you know the instructions before you check the box. So that's really important. But in this case, from what they've said, it's a multiple choice. You select one option or the other. It's not a yes or no.
Just vote B.
Well, no, we don't advocate for you to vote a particular way. We're giving you the information, and you guys make up your mind.
I'm not one of them.
But it will be there will be only two square, basically two choices. It won't be first yes, no, second yes, no. It's going to be one or the other. So. Okay.
Is that it for questions, or do we have more? I do have one question. Okay, we'll go here, and then we'll be at the front.
A lot of the people that signed up for the before lived either in Arizona or wherever around the world. What about this vote? Will they still have that chance? Only if they're here?
No, that referendum, you have to be in person, on paper only. No, I don't think there's mail-in for this referendum.
Well,
I'm not sure. Yeah, we have to clarify, but I don't think there's even mail-in. I believe you need to be there in person on paper. And that would be mirroring what Quebec does. When Quebec did its referendum, no mail-in, no vote before, like it's that day, at that point, people that show up. But again, maybe we should verify if there's mail-in, because government website.
This isn't so much a question, more as I've been to almost every single one of these events between Drumheller and Hanna, whether it's been with APP, Stay Free Alberta, or now you guys here. I missed you guys in Drum, but I am probably among the younger demographic, and almost every single time it is brought up, what about the younger generations? Now, just so you guys know, I am only here tonight because I don't have to work tomorrow. My brother does, otherwise he would be here. And amongst my coworkers and people younger than me, most of the time, we just want to go home and be done with the day before we have to go back to work the next day. We don't always come up to these kind of events. I'm an exception, but most of us are paying attention and we are listening to everything that's going on with very keen interest.
I found the same.
Actually, we had to make phone calls when we were first working for APP, and we found the same response. When I asked, well, okay, I know you can't go to any of these meetings because you're working 14 hours a day, but could you maybe get one other guy on your crew to sign up on the APP site? Every single one of them, no exceptions, said, Joanne, they're all on that site already. So there's a lot of support there. That gentleman that just spoke is right. There's a lot of support there. They're just exhausted. They're working hard.
The great majority of young people I talk to are on board.
Yeah. John just found out that there will be mail-in ballot for that referendum. So yeah. So my bad. In Quebec, we don't allow that for a referendum.
Is that it?
I will clarify one thing, though. It was never the case that people that lived in other places were allowed to sign the citizen initiative referendum petition. They could spend up to 6 months less a day somewhere else, but they were normally residents of Alberta. So at no time has anyone that lived somewhere else been able to participate in the democratic process in Alberta, as far as I know. At least legitimately.
I think she's talking about.
Apparently.
Yeah. The Premier said that this vote will have all the same options, benefits as any provincial election.
I think what the concern of the person that asked that question is that there's a whole whack of snowbirds out there, and it is October. So I don't think she's talking about citizens living in Mexico or Yugoslavia or something sending in ballots.
Well, there's a bunch of guys working up north too.
Yeah, that's right. You guys are great. I mean, I've been to several of these, and these are more questions than I've seen in a long time. Yes. And they're good questions.
Good questions, yeah. Thank you.
But I think if there are no more questions, then we'll wrap it up, and I'll just say thank you very much for coming out. Thank you very much for the volunteers that showed up, I think quite a bit earlier than I did, and we're ready to work and put these things together. I want to leave you with a little bit of encouragement. I've been involved in events like this in Alberta since 2021, I guess. And what I've seen is Albertans from all corners of Alberta standing up and pitching in and giving their time and their resources and their energy to make sure that Alberta has the best future possible. So I'm very, very encouraged by that. It has never changed. There's been times where there's less bums in seats, but I have always noticed that Albertans are willing to do the work. And if we can facilitate the conversations and motivate people to do the work and have conversations themselves, we will get the best outcome for us and our families. So at the end of the day, it's all up to you, but let's talk Alberta.
Yeah. Okay, we'll close in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege we have to live in a free country still for now. And I'm asking for protection over people of Alberta, protection over what we have to say, over our conversation, over our family, and on our way back home tonight. And then Jesus, I pray, amen.
Thank you.
Have a great night, folks.
Let's get you cleaned and packed up.
Come and grab it. I can't get up there.
Throw it.
I've been sitting too long.
I know, that's why I got up.
I appreciate the level of your knowledge. I really do.
Well, there we go, folks. Another Let's Talk Alberta event wrapped up in Hanna, Alberta. What an absolutely fantastic week it's been, talking about the future of Alberta with Albertans who are concerned about the future. I really meant what I said about being encouraged about what I've seen since I've been involved in this advocacy thing. And I got to say, you know, if we continue doing what we're doing and having the conversations, we will get the best outcome possible. And I should also remind everyone that sometimes the outcome that we get isn't the outcome that we want. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. We have a capital G God with a capital P plan, and we're part of that plan. So I hope you can take some comfort in that and think on that as you go through your day and your conversations with other Albertans. Have a great evening, everyone. We will see you next week for another Let's Talk Alberta event.
Meow!
Thank you.